Hello, avid readers, book nerds, or casual observers, and welcome to the Read Along brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna, and this is our read-through of Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. All right, week 1, the prologue in chapter 1.
Welcome back to the Gentlemen Bastards.
Yeah, it was a little jarring. Like, I was like, wait, which world are we in now? And then I was getting kind of confused with the blade itself. And I was like, no, it's not the blade itself.
Same though. I was definitely mixing them in my head for a couple paragraphs, and then I was like, oh no, wait. No, this is the one like Camorr, that's where they were. And there was a Kappa and the Grey King and the Falconer, and like it all came back.
Yeah.
It took a hot second though.
Yeah, it had been a while. Let's quickly just touch on the prologue. It was very short, and intentionally, it leaves you kind of like wondering if Jean has... Are we calling him Jean or Jean?
The audiobook is Jean. Okay.
That's hard for me because when I read it, it's definitely Jean. But, so Jean seems to have turned on Locke.
Yeah, it was interesting. And I know that was coming because I had read the prologue. That's all I read though. Okay. Previously, like as soon as I got it, I just read the prologue out of curiosity. Mm-hmm. So like months ago, I had already read the prologue, so I knew that was coming. But yeah, I am curious if it's part of an elaborate ruse.
Right.
Because that would be like them.
It would.
But Locke does seem genuinely confused and upset.
Right.
So maybe it is an elaborate ruse, but Locke couldn't be in on it for some reason. I don't want to believe that Jean would turn on Locke like that, but I guess we have a whole book to find out why that might happen. So,
yeah. Now, springboarding from that thought into chapter 1, they do have a very spooky encounter with these randos that are being puppeted by the Bondsmagi in retaliation for what they did to the Falconer. So, is it possible that in the prologue, Jean is being manipulated by one of the Bondsmagi people?
That, I think, is likely.
Because they know his name, which is a thing. And,
right.
And Jean mentions that this is a problem because they know my whole name.
Right. Yeah. So it's totally possible that Jean is being puppeteered by a Bondsmagi in the prologue. But I guess I mean we don't know. We don't know. They could have just made a big deal about that to kind of like make us think that, but then to make a genuine betrayal hit even harder, you know? Who knows? Who knows? We did get a cool scene the kind of before the puppeteering of the random merchants in the spooky encounter.
Yeah, I skipped ahead just because I wanted to tie it back to that.
But, yeah, for sure. Which was really spooky. But we did get to see a cool, kind of like a casino / poker scene.
Yeah.
Like a fantasy casino, which is fun. With this game, I forget exactly what it's called. Something carousel.
What was it called? I wrote it down.
Carousel was in the name.
You're
for
right.
Sure.
You're right. I know I wrote it down because I was like, that's interesting.
See if
Carousel Hazard.
Yep, I just found it too. First page. Carousel Hazard, which sounds like a weird carnival ride, and
which it has some like carnival ride elements because it like pops this thing up out of the center of the table and spins it around, and it spits out 2 vials of some very strong booze
for the loser.
Yeah.
It was a really entertaining scene.
I will say that like I have no idea how to play any kind of actual gambling game. Like when people talk about going to casinos and playing craps or blackjack or whatever, I have no idea how to play those games. And I have no idea how to play this game, but it's pure luck. And you turn your cards, you make a bid, and then you turn your cards over, and they tell you if you won or not. It's not poker where you like wait until someone folds and you could win with bad cards. You can't win with bad cards. So this is a kind of game that I could at least participate in and probably lose, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't
And
be
it was-
dependent on me like being able to bluff.
Yeah. It still had a lot of the elements of poker, though, where like everyone's kind of concealing. They've all got their poker face. They're trying to mislead each other.
Right.
They talked about how they've got, each of them has their own like little trick that they use to try to distract the other players. Like one of the ladies is smoking a cigar, and the other one is eating chocolate dusted cherries, which it just seems like an inferior version of chocolate covered cherries. Like, why are they
Right.
dusty?
I mean, honestly, for real. Because I was like, cocoa powder does not taste good by itself. Cocoa powder
No.
only tastes good when it's mixed with sugar and other things.
I was like, did they just like toss some cherries in Nesquik or something, or like Ovaltine? What are they?
What would be a little better than just straight up cocoa powder? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an odd. I wouldn't pick it, but good honor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they play this game.
And it
They're
was-
cheating. We know they're cheating because we've been told
Yeah.
they're cheating, but we don't know how
we
they're
also-
cheating.
We also know that cheaters get executed in this town.
Right. Well, especially they're in the Sinspire, which is like a very prestigious gambling house. But yeah, they're playing a pretty risky game here by cheating. We find out later that they're cheating because they've been poisoning the cards essentially, and the lady that's eating the cherries has been microdosing herself all night with this
Because
poison.
she's been obnoxiously licking her fingers, which is supposed to annoy everyone, but it also she drugged herself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My question about that whole thing, they go to turn in their chips that they've won, that they should not have won, and the encounter with Celendry, and she's like the owner of the house is like right hand person.
The major domo.
Yes, she touches Locke on the shoulder, and like tells him that they're invited to the 6th floor, which is an honor. So I'm wondering, will she have got some, because they had those powder things hidden under their collars, and when she touched his shoulder, did she get some on her hand? Are they gonna? I'm thinking that they're gonna get found out. I think that Locke is slipping a little bit. I didn't have a reason to think Locke was slipping until we went into the flashback.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah, I
very
didn't think
interesting.
about that. I think, her, because it was odd that she put, it was also a fake hand,
Right.
a prosthetic hand on his shoulder to congratulate them. So, like, maybe she was trying to find something out,
I don't know.
Could be, for sure. Time will tell. She's got a messed up face, though. She's kind of like Phantom of the Opera style. Like,
A little bit.
half her face is messed up. But anyway, we got to see them pull off a little mini heist in the opening scene in the Sinspire, which is such a cool name for like a casino location. That's great naming, Scott
Yes.
Lynch.
Yes. I'll have you know that I had to read part 2 of chapter 1 like 3 times because it went way heavy on the setting description.
I was about to ask you, so Anna, tell me all about the layout of this city. Tell me about the setting.
I'll tell you what happened. I was reading part 2 and I was almost done with part 2 and I was like, I have no idea what happened in this section.
Yeah.
So then I went back and read it again and I was like, I still have no idea what happened in this section. What am I supposed to be getting out of this? And then I was like, you dope. It's the setting. Read it again and pay attention to the setting. So here are my notes.
The setting.
My first note is lots of setting details. Joseph, can you describe the location for me? But then, so we've got Verar,
Mm-hmm.
which is made of black gas of the Eldrin. And then we have the Rose of the Gods. So it's like this like material has like created these petal-like shapes rising out of the water. Am I right?
The glass reefs,
Yes.
according to this map that is
there's
also
a-
in the beginning of the book.
Is there for real a map?
Yes, there's a map. I love this so much.
Mine does not have a map. I will have you
Really?
know. No.
In the beginning, there's no map.
Nope. And there's not one in the end. So, I'm not a total idiot. I would have
Well,
totally.
that just means that
If I had a map, I would have totally looked at it.
my mass market paperback is superior to your bigger, fancier version,
Which
apparently.
is a little infuriating.
Yeah, because mine is definitely cheaper.
Yeah. And then there's the Golden Steps, which is where the exclusive clubs for gambling are. And there's no law enforcement in the Houses of Chance except for heinous crimes.
Right.
And then there's the Sinspire, which is an Elderglass tower, which has a very rigid code of conduct. Oh, thank you. Which has a very rigid code of conduct, and there is death to cheaters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken Jean and Locke 2 years to get to the 5th floor, and they are in fact cheating.
It kind of reminds me, it's like Heaven's Arena in Hunter x Hunter, except for gambling. Like how they're
Yes.
like fighting through the floors.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of like that. But I'm taking a virtual bow for my detailed notes about the setting.
I am proud of you for paying extra close attention to the setting.
It only took me 3 read-throughs.
Hat is off to you. Good job.
I have succeeded in doing the bare minimum as a reader.
Well, it was also confusing for me when I first read it because I was also still kind of in the throes of like, wait, which book is this? What universe is this? And then
Right.
I forgot about like the elder glass stuff that like glows at night and
Yeah. I just remember how embarrassing it was to be reading through the lives of Locke and Lamora and have no idea about the elder glass glowing until like
Yeah.
halfway through.
halfway through, yeah. And then it came up and you're like, wait, I'm confused. And I'm like, what do you mean you're confused? They talked about this in chapter 1. Well, good job. So you're like, I'm not about to make that mistake again.
No. But
Yeah.
seriously, I almost didn't even realize it was happening until I got to the end of the section. Was like, I have no clue what just happened. It's like I black out.
You block it. You block it out.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Your brain just doesn't like accept it as important information. It's kind of like me with people's names,
Huh.
which you are way better at than I am.
True.
You have like a steel trap brain for names, like
Most
face
of
to
the
face. Maybe not necessarily in like a book like this. Some of the names are
Right.
kind of difficult. Like the names of the 2 ladies they were playing with. Couldn't tell you. I'd have to look it up. You probably wrote it down.
I wrote it down because there was no way I was going to remember.
Right, exactly. But like in real life, you're better with names. That's all I'm saying.
Thank
Trying to throw you a bone. I'm trying
Thank
to.
you. I appreciate that.
Your brain
But
is
you know,
a high functioning brain.
it's weird though because like when I read The Lord of the Rings, like I love Tolkien's description of setting. I don't remember it, but I love reading it. Like I don't remember parts of it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's been a long time since I read them.
Tolkien's setting descriptions are also very long.
Yes.
They're beautifully written. They're very
Yes.
long though, and one could argue that not all that information was relevant to the story.
True.
And could he have toned it down a little bit? Yeah, but I think it was. I'm still glad that it's part of the story.
Yes.
Anyway,
I would also like to point out that for the most part, Tolkien's world, when it's described, is something that you very likely could have seen in your own world. So it's easy to
True.
be like, oh, there's mountains with snow. This is like, there's these ruins of this glass from this time that nobody knows anything about, and it's created these structures for these buildings, and it's like they rise out of the, and it's like, what do you mean?
which is cool because it's like
cool, but
ancient alien culture with magical rocks and stuff. So like it makes for a
Right.
cool setting, but it is also not the most intuitive to like picture
Right.
with your mind because it's not something that you're used to ever seeing in real life.
Right.
So I get you.
Thank you. So pivoting away from setting, um, of the ladies, I just want to take a moment and say thank you, Scott Lynch, for describing the one lady who's eating the chocolate covered cherries as being very round and exceedingly
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
Like, we're not shaming her for being a plus size queen.
And you know, she was going to town on those chocolate dusted cherries.
She was.
Dusted.
Which that's just
Gross.
but it wasn't like I didn't feel like he was mocking her.
No.
Which
That was
was
just her
just who she was.
her distraction.
Right.
So and then
Anyway.
there was a super cool like ex-privateer lady with the scars on her face who was like used to like hunting down slave ships and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to read a book about you.
Right. And like, how did these two ladies end up together? Like as
know,
card
right?
partners.
How did they meet?
Like, I just want to know. What's their relationship?
Yeah.
Did one of them save the other one in an unfortunate like situation? And that's how they I don't know. I just have so many questions. Maybe they'll come back. You know, it tends to be in the Scott Lynch books where we think we're only going to be with someone for a few chapters or like a chapter and then they become an integral part of the whole story.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll come back. Yeah, was there anything else in the first chapter that you thought was like
As far as things that stood out, no. I mean, it was very introductory, just kind of reintroducing us to the characters and like what their shtick is. You know, they're trying to worm their way into a position of influence with these fake identities.
right?
They've been working on these fake identities and like working their way up to this point for like 2 years. They're trying to meet with a gentleman who is
Requin.
known as Requin, and I know that because it's the title of the next chapter. Requiem was in my head, and I was like, no, it's shorter than that, but it sounds like that.
Yeah.
Requin, and yeah, so we don't know exactly like what their master plan is, or what their scheme is, or what they're trying to do. We just know they're trying to get in with this Requin guy.
Yeah.
And then Locke almost gets too drunk. They almost lose because he gets too drunk.
Yeah.
But then they don't. Then the other lady succumbs to her microdosing of drugs first, and then they win, and then they leave. After all the things we talked about with the major domo lady and the
Right.
fake arm and everything. But then, yeah, we get the creepy market scene where the random fruit seller says, "Thank you, Master Lamora," on their way out, and he thinks that maybe he's just super drunk. And I was like, no, you weren't. At first, I keep thinking that it's their female friend that we never met,
I know. I just want it to be. Is it Sabina?
Sabetha or something.
like that. Yeah.
I want it to be her so bad, it never is.
I know.
I thought it was like her in a really good disguise. But also, Easter egg, the fruit salesman person tried to sell them an orange that was from Don Sophia in Camorr. I was like, that's the weird fruit lady, or Donna Sophia, the weird fruit lady that like had the alchemical fruits that she was growing, like the hybrid fruits, and this was an orange that produced alcohol inside. It was like a liquor made from a fruit, like inside the fruit. And he was like, "Oh no, we're acquainted."
And I'm super drunk, so I don't need to be more drunk. But thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they also encounter a scorpion salesman. Scorpions are like drugs.
These are, apparently.
Yeah. So you
Their
get
venom
stung
their venom
repeatedly
gets you high.
and you get high. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then we have the run-in with the Bondsmagi people.
Yeah. The puppets, the Bondsmagi
Yes.
puppets, which was spoopy.
Very.
And Jean is like, I gotta leave. They know my name. And Locke's like, no. You're staying.
He's like, you can't leave me. After everything we've been through, you can't leave me.
So, it's nice that Locke isn't ready to just immediately drop his friends in this
Right.
chapter. So
So in Scotland fashion, you have the main chapter, and then we have a second part that like goes back in time or delves into some kind of backstory element.
mhm.
So we get to go back to right after the end of the Lives of Locke Lamora. They're on the ship. Locke's in real bad shape, and he's throwing a pity party. Which like he's grieving, so grief looks different for
Yeah.
everyone. But Jean has done a pretty good job of pulling himself out of the muck and like getting on with business. I do believe that that's kind of a trauma response, right? Like he can recognize that his friend is not capable of doing that for himself, so he goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
And
Some people, it's like they have to keep busy,
yeah,
to avoid thinking about it, which is probably a part of what John's doing. But also they can't both be like insufferable, self-loathing,
right,
narcissistic, like
right,
which is what Locke, like they can't both become raging alcoholics and like bury their head in the bottom of a wine bottle and expect everything to turn out okay.
right.
Yeah, Locke, and he also was ignoring his physical therapy.
Yes,
Locke was, so I'm like, you're not going to be able to jump off roofs and do crazy parkour if you don't stretch your anything.
yeah,
After getting cut up as bad as you did by the Grey King,
yeah.
John's right. All your tendons are gonna heal back all stiff and wonky.
And
But
you're literally just atrophying your muscle tone. You're
yeah,
just wasting away.
he was already supposed to be skinny too.
Yeah.
He didn't have the weight to lose.
Nope.
So
But while Locke is having this majorly depressive episode, Jean is out like making he's kicking butt and taking names. He's kind of overtaken this band of thugs. He described so they're not in the wherever they were in the first part of the chapter. They're in Valparaiso, which is a smaller town city with a very small crime organization. Nothing at all like what they're used to in Camorr. So it doesn't take Jean any time at all to figure out who's who, and to bust into their like hideout and basically name himself their kappa.
which is such a baller move. Like
Seriously.
like I didn't realize that pretty much any of them, probably Locke included, have at least them two, maybe not the other people that were in Father Chains' group, but those two certainly have the skills and the knowledge to just waltz into any like small time gang and just become the leader in 15 minutes. Like
Right.
it was
It's
very impressive and fun to read.
yeah, it's pretty fascinating because in the first book I feel like we knew that Jean was very capable, but he was not nearly as
Forceful.
forceful or aggressive as Locke was, or not as willing to like put himself into that position. He was more of the like, I'm Locke's sidekick, but don't mess with me kind of type. At least that's how I recall him. But
Yeah,
in this,
he was kind
he's
of like in the heist movie, he's the guy in the chair. He's the guy that like is like the logistical expert. Like he's wicked smart. He's their accountant, right? But and usually the accountant is kind of like the he's not a fighter, but he also had the benefit of being a big brawny. He's got the brains and the bronze.
yeah,
So he can pretty much take over whatever gang he wants. Like
yeah. But it was like he stepped into some main character energy all of a sudden.
yeah.
I was like, oh, look
cool.
at you go, bud. Look
It was
at you
definitely
go.
cool.
Yeah, no, I'm here for it. And then he basically just gets fed up with Locke and forces him to get out of bed by throwing water on him and then locking him in his room and making him pick a lock. And then he sets up an obstacle course so Locke has to jump out the window. Like he forces him into action. And they have quite the intense little spat.
Yeah. I've been running into a lot of scenes like that recently in Rhythm of War that I'm reading in Stormlight Archives. A similar scene just happened with
Really?
the main character where they were like in a very depressive state,
Huh.
and another character had to come in and be like, we're gonna go drinking tonight, and he's like, no, I don't want to be around you, just leave. And he's like, no, we're leaving, get up, get dressed, we're leaving right now.
Yeah.
And it was just it's like, it's nice when like your friends can recognize that you're not in a good place and they like force you to go out and do something if you're not going to be able to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
That's it's nice to read about that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And it's also, especially in, I mean, in this too, but also in the Stormlight Archive books, like the kind of examination of mental health issues and like depression. And yeah, it's just interesting to read because, I mean, yeah, Locke was definitely in the middle of a big depressive episode.
Yeah. I mean, he blames himself almost completely for what happened to the rest of the Gentleman Bastards, and he's taken it pretty hard, which is fair. He does make the comment that he didn't want Jean to come get him. He just wanted to die with the Grey King. And Jean didn't let that happen. So he's also mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was a quite the display of tough love. And of course Locke overdoes it. And he steals so many things, and like some jewelry off the governor's wife while she's in bed with the governor.
Yeah.
And he's not in any kind of disguise. He's
Yep.
He's very clearly himself. So yeah, they have to run away from. They're only in that little city for a little while.
Yep. They
Which made me
disguise
sad.
themselves as like leper characters, and then
Yes.
they're let out.
Made me sad because I'm like, Jean did all that work and now you have to leave because Locke's an idiot. Which makes me wonder if this is all setting the stage for that betrayal in the prologue to be a legitimate betrayal.
Yeah. Because that is a little bit of a grievance, you know, and it's legitimate. And I don't recall if Locke ever like actually apologized for it, if it was just kind of like a, not like half-hearted apology, but just like a kind of, they like kind of brushed past it, you know? Because yeah, he was, while Locke was busy in a downward spiral, he was making money. He was literally making Locke's wine money. And
right. And growing attached to these boys.
Yeah. I was going to teach them how to cook.
Yeah. Well, and he was like, if you guys run into trouble, let me know. I'll go take care of it. And he did.
He was like actually earning their respect. He could have just stayed there and carved a living out for himself in this little town as Kappa Jean.
Yeah.
And been fine until the Bondsmages caught up to him, and that could have still happened. But
that was just a matter of time.
Yeah, probably, if the Bondsmagi are as powerful as they claim to be. But yeah, I was very excited to get back into this world, and the dialogue is still one of the strongest parts of this series, and I just love how close you can tell the characters are based on how they interact with each other, and it's very compelling, their relationship. So I'm thoroughly enjoying myself, and I'm happy to be back.
Me too. It's been fun now that I've oriented to the world again.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to be back, for sure.
For sure. Well, what's on the agenda for the next time?
It's so hard to remember, you guys. You have to read chapters 2 and 3 for next time.
Okay.
The benefit of the Scott Lynch books is that the chapters are fairly long. And there's not a ton of them because there's like subsections in the chapters. So it's easier to be like chapters 1 and 2.
And it's nice that he breaks them up a little bit so they're pretty easy to chew through. So very good. So I guess 2 and 3 for next time. Yep. We'll see what happens next. It's hard to predict these books.
It actually really is.
It was hard to predict the first one too, so I have no idea what's going to happen. So
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
I guess until next time, happy reading.
And we'll talk at you next time.
Later.
Bye.